War. Benefits absolutely no one, yet ironically happens to be one of the biggest catalysts in moving history forward. Like it or not, wars have shaped the world we live in today. It's times like these where we get to see a bunch of phenomena, like gas prices rising higher than a shot of heroin, people going out in the streets protesting for peace without understanding geopolitics, state media doing everything in its power to show how divided the country is day by day, propaganda that really brings out the creativity in people. Seriously, that B2 was made out of paper mache. You got the left telling you that we're losing the war and painting Trump in whatever bad light as they can, and you got the right wing glazing Trump, giving Chris Collinsworth a run for his money. But most importantly, times like these is where everyone feels like they're entitled to an opinion without even doing the littlest amount of research. They just watch a little bit of Fox News, a little bit of CNN, and they said good, which unfortunately leads to misinformation. What is up, guys? My name is 21, and today I'm just going to express my viewpoint on this war because sadly I feel like my view is actually an unpopular opinion because there's a disturbing trend where this war is extremely political when it shouldn't be. Now, before I share my view on this war, I think it's very important to state my political stance. I am not a Republican, I am not a Democrat, I am not right or left. I'm American first, and I refuse to partake in parties that are actively dividing our nation. That gives me the ability to look at this war without any sort of political lens and without any sort of bias. And finally, the biggest reason why I thought I should share my opinion is because I've always been interested in wars. Like ever since second grade, I've been interested in World War II. I know the story from the back of my head right now. And, just seeing how the operations, how history, has its way of storytelling is very interesting to me. Now, that being said, throughout the video, I'm gonna separate my fascination from war from what's actually going on because, I grew up, like I said, reading World War II books, being fascinated by the history, and also playing games that glorified war in a way, play games like Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3, literally played a simulated version of World War 3 itself. Now, it hits different when, the people being lost are not just letters on a book or lines of code in a game. It hits different, and obviously it's a sensitive topic. So that's why I'm gonna move and separate my fascination from war from what's actually going on. So here is my take on this war in a nutshell. I am not for the war. I am not for the war. Obviously, this could have been avoided very easily, but I don't think people should be out there protesting for peace right now. I don't think so, because what this war is buying us peace in the long run. It is not buying, obviously, is shattering the peace right now, and the way it's been done, very controversial, no congressional approval. We're very wrong in that. But like I said, war has no morals. War has no good guys. So we just have to look at the picture that we're given. And the reality is that this is something that nobody wanted, but unfortunately needed to happen. Now, I know that take already has a lot of people potentially disagreeing with me, but what I'm going to be doing down in this video is not just talking shit out of my mouth. I'm actually going to back it up by explaining the series of events on how this war even came to be, and also explaining what's the current state of the war based on all the information that I know. So let's start by answering one question. Why are we at war? The answer is very simple. And now a lot of people are skeptical about this because we use this excuse for the Iraq war, but this is different, and I have evidence to back it up. We are trying to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. Do you guys know what that means? Now, I know what some of y'all are thinking. You're thinking, well, if we have nuclear weapons and other countries have nuclear weapons, isn't it fair for them to have nuclear weapons? In retrospect, yes. But here's the thing. Iran also happens to be the most sanctioned nation in the world right now. And you know why that is? That's because they do not comply to peace treaties. deals made by other countries, they do not follow order, you know? This is also a regime with terrorist proxy states. That does not mean that Iran is full of terrorists. That's not what I'm saying. Iran is full with innocent people who are being controlled by a regime that kills their own people for, you know, protesting on the streets. Can you imagine, like, all the No King protests and all that stuff? Can you imagine that Trump literally just ordered the military to kill all those people? That's literally what's going on in our nation right now. This is not a good regime. There are people who are just wanting peace and even defending this nation for being a nation. But what they don't understand, that this is a nation that unfortunately is being controlled by a horrible regime. You know, this is a dictatorship that they're being controlled by. So can you imagine what Iran could do with a nuke? Do you know what that will mean? If they get their hands on a nuke, we could literally be living in a modern warfare 2 timeline. Like, we could have the Iranian regime supply terrorists with nuclear weapons. The only difference is that we won't have Captain Price and Bravo 6 to save our asses. You know, that's the only difference. On July 14, 2015, the UN and Iran made a deal where basically they had to keep their enriched uranium down to a 9%. Let me pull up a graph right here. Yeah, so down to a 5%, because this is what's required to fuel power plants, all, you know, just to power the nation, right? Now, to build a nuclear weapon, you need 90% of enriched uranium. So the deal basically made it to, you have to stay within the limits of, you know, industrial power to keep a peaceful nuclear program. But Iran, being Iran, got caught at a 60%, and this is a confirmed number, at a 60% rate of enriched uranium in 2013, as well as later on that year, they caught them up to an 83.7%. Now, Tehran, which is the capital of Iran, called the 83.7%, and I quote, an unintentional fluctuation. Now, keep in mind, 60% is already considered weapons grade. Like, 60% is way above where they need to be. Fast forward to 2026, after multiple failed negotiations and overall failed diplomacy dating back all the way to 2023, our new administration comes in to talk about it and brings it up like, hey, you guys are not following the deal that we made with y'all, prompting this administration to negotiate on the terms of the deal to make it a little bit more flexible for the Iranian regime. These talks then go perceived as well, with the president stating these talks as, and I quote, substantial progress. Now, Trump being Trump, you can never take this guy seriously because this president is extremely good on giving statements without giving any form of assessment. Subtle foreshadowing. It wasn't rocket science to find out that the Iranians were still breaching the deal. President Trump, of course, found out about this and now pay close attention to this. This guy publicly threatened Iran, claiming that he was going to bomb the country and that he was going to bomb their nuclear sites publicly. So Trump does exactly that. While everyone is asleep, little did we all know that the B-2 bombers are on their way to deliver all American taxpayer might on Iran's doorstep. Now, these B-2 bombers were equipped with a bomb that has never been used before, which is the bunker buster bomb, which is basically a bomb that is so heavy that it burrows all the way down and explodes later to blow up bunkers. So these bombers go to 3 sites: Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. The B-2 bombers flew in undetected in Iranian airspace, given that the B-2 is notorious for its stealth abilities, and absolutely succeeded in hitting all these 3 targets. They flew back home unharmed, and the operation would go on to be known as Operation Midnight Hammer. Keep in mind that these 3 sites were instrumental and key to Iran's nuclear program. So the next day, the world wakes up and realizes that the US just bombed Iran and completely obliterated 3 of their nuclear sites, prompting the president to declare victory and declare the operation as a complete success with no assessment. Homie just saw the satellite footage and saw 3 holes on the 3 targets and said, wow, mission accomplished. Without insider intelligence, without any sort of assessment, for what it could have been, the entire bunker could have been untouched, and this guy is just preaching victory and declaring the operation as a smashing success. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. Because, do you remember when I told you that he publicly announced the threats? Iran obviously heard those and they were like, oh shit, we about to get hit. So you know what they did? They got a bunch of fucking trucks, drove them to the 3 facilities that were going to get hit, and extracted all the material, aka the enriched uranium, and dipped. Meaning that Operation Midnight Hammer was probably a success in destroying the 3 fucking bunkers, but all the material got moved out. And here's some satellite footage to show you what I mean. This is literally exposure in 4K. This piece of evidence also serves to the people who are on a more conspiracy side of things, who don't believe that Iran's intentions are to get a nuclear weapons, or who believe that we're only there for the oil. No, this is 4K evidence that these guys want a nuclear weapon. And if that's somehow not enough to convince you, here's another image. This is another facility getting buried in dirt because they know that they're trying to enrich uranium to make things that are not part of the deal. You only bury something in dirt when you're trying to hide it. So now, given the evidence that, surprise, surprise, Operation Midnight Hammer was probably not a success after all, Mr. Trump, this guy proceeds to go balls deep inside the country and launch an entire air campaign. This air campaign turned out to be a joint operation between the US Air Force and Israel Air Force to bomb the country, targeting strategic targets such as military bases, missile facilities, and buildings of high command. I think it's also important to note that during these strikes, a lot of collateral damage occurred. Schools, civilian infrastructure all got hit during these intense bombings. Just to remind you that the ones that pay the most in times of war are the civilians. In these strikes, there were over 200 fighter jets. I'm talking about F-13s, F-15s, you name it. That's how big the scale was of these attacks. The world once again wakes up to see Iran in shambles, getting bombed and everything. But no one really knows what's going on at the time, so media coverage and everybody is just seeing it as like, oh, just some more strategic air raids. This was not the case because the president then made a former announcement where he stated his goal. It was a regime change, officially putting the United States and Iran in a state of war. So that's how all of this came to be. So it's not like just overnight we decide to invade Iran for no reason. There is a lot of context that I have provided to you guys in this video to show you the timeline of things. So now that we're at war, you might be asking, how is the war going? And here's the most polarizing thing that I see in the United States right now. You cannot even get a clear picture of what the war is looking like, because one side is telling you that the war is going bad and it's going horrible. We're hiding our losses and, we're getting hit really hard and it's not as easy as we thought it was. While the other is completely glazing Trump and painting our military like it's unstoppable. Isn't it ironic that we like to judge other countries for their propaganda when we literally do it ourselves? Ain't that irony? But like I stated earlier in this video, I have the blessing of not getting my news from there. Like I said, I do not get influenced by state headlines. I literally am here to tell you what's going on exactly in the war. I credit the enforcer for all of this information. So let's address the elephant in the room. Who is winning the war right now? The answer is very simple. To nobody's surprise, the US is winning. As of today, March 13th, 2026, the US has 3 aircraft carriers in the Middle East currently just bombing the crap out of the country. We have eradicated their navy. They have no vessels left. We even taken out some of their stealth ships. Here's a photo of them. These little boats claim to be stealthy. Clearly they weren't stealthy enough because all of them have been eradicated. The USS Charlotte, which is an American nuclear powered submarine, took out what is believed to be the IRGC's most valuable naval asset and broke that bitch in half. Here's a clip of that.
We can see it sailing along here, and we can actually see the explosion of the torpedo at the stern area of the ship, lifting the entire stern section above water, and not only that, visibly rupturing the hull and completely cracking it right near to the area of the aft deck. You can actually see that massive crack on the Denna right there, which appears to have actually split the vessel into 2 separate pieces. This picture as well, showing the bow of the IS Denna actually tilted all the way up almost vertically into the sky as the vessel began to sink rapidly after being hit.
There you go. I mean, if you've never seen a submarine hit a ship before, there you go. That's what a torpedo does to a boat. By the way, that also marked the first time that an American submarine opened fire since World War II. Just a little fun fact there. So the Iranian Navy is in complete shambles, completely eradicated. Here's another clip of an F-13, I think it was, just taking out a ship that was just docked there. Their Navy was extremely vulnerable to begin with. The ass whooping was so severe that it made the Iranians take a little makeshift cargo boat that they turned into a warship overnight and begged India to hide it for them. You cannot make this shit up, bro. That's how it is at seas. Now let's take a look at air. The US has established air supremacy, taking control over Iranian airspace and targeting air defense systems. Unfortunately, they have taken out some of the very last F-14 Tomcats, a very iconic aircraft just gone in the war. They have taken out planes just parked at air bases. I mean, here's a clip of an AC-130 getting blown up. But overall, the Iranian Air Force is also eradicated. So now let's take a look at the ground. Given that the US has air supremacy, they've been relentlessly going after these ballistic missile launcher trucks. Here's like a bunch of little clips of them getting hit. I mean, they're getting hit by F-35s, B-2 bombers, you name it. They're just getting obliterated. The IRGC has reported a significant loss of these vehicles, which are vital towards their missile attacks on Tel Aviv, which is the capital of Israel, as well as other Gulf nations, which we'll talk about that in a minute. Most of their overland missile facilities have been destroyed. Their military bases left in shambles. I mean, here's a photo of one military base before and after. These strategic targets just getting absolutely smacked on currently. And most importantly, the biggest headline throughout this entire war is the fact that they took out Iran's supreme leader, making the goal of a regime change much more realistic in the process. Now let's talk about the Iranian response. Best way to put it, complete panic and pandemonium over there. Because they just lost their supreme leader, meaning that they lost their head of command, and they're just getting obliterated from all fronts, from sea, from air, you name it. So this has prompted Iran to continue bombing Tel Aviv with missile strikes, which the Iron Dome has been intercepting successfully. But the wild card under their sleeve are these Shahed drones. Here's a photo of them. What these drones are, they're suicide drones, meaning that on top of the missiles that they're launching, which their firepower is slowly decreasing every day as we keep taking out these ballistic missile launcher trucks, they keep sending these drones with these missiles, meaning that although the Iron Dome and the air defense systems are intercepting the missiles somewhat successfully, the drones are doing a lot of damage because they come in large quantities and they're kind of hard to intercept. Not only that, but also This shows a disturbing trend. One interceptor missile costs about $2 million, while on the other hand, one Shahed drone costs about $40,000, meaning that every time we intercept a drone, that's a $2 million loss for us, and that is a $40,000 loss for them, meaning that these drones can be mass produced and are easy to make and are exhausting our air defense systems. But this is somewhat expected because they have been bombing Tel Aviv since even before the war. But what was really unexpected was the fact that they were going after other Gulf nations, prompting a potential bigger conflict. It all started with targeting US bases, but then it expanded. It expanded into hitting places like Dubai. I mean, here's a video of that. Dubai is considered one of the safest cities in the world, and yet this is what they were met with. Intelligence like the CIA then later went on to report that apparently the Iranian regime activated a protocol known as their Doomsday Protocol. So this protocol consists of exactly what they're doing. They're hitting all of the Gulf nations as they can, as well as Tel Aviv, and targeting US bases. But the real strategy and the real chokehold that plays to their advantage is the Strait of Hormuz. This strait is home to some of the busiest ports in the region there. And this is where a lot of those countries get the oil, get cargo, all of this stuff, right? A lot of cargo boats have stopped going through the strait, causing the gas prices and oil prices to skyrocket like heroin, like I said earlier. Because Iran is currently attacking any ships that decide to cross it. There's some footage of drone vessels literally hitting these ships and evidence that some of these ships are currently at the bottom of the sea right now. They know that blocking the strait is going to put economic pressure on the United States, and that is their strategy. So that is basically the war. So to put it all in one frame, Iran's military is getting destroyed. Their navy doesn't exist anymore. Their air force just completely cut off from the skies. Their ground forces, their trucks are becoming limited, and their firepower is slowly decreasing. But where Iran is posing a real threat and posing a challenge to the United States and Israel is with drone warfare. Just like we've seen in the Ukraine front, that's been the game changer. So overall, we have a war that is already basically decided, but the reason it's not over is because Iran has their drones and they're hitting ships in the Strait of Hormuz, they're hitting Gulf nations, and they are succeeding in their hit rate. The IRGC is an example of a military that got completely cut off from the war, and now the Iranian regime is just doing everything in its power to stay in the fight. Now, this means that there could be potentially other threats, such as sleeper cell activation. So yes, the US is winning its war, but the war is not over yet. And ladies and gentlemen, that is my take on the war. This was a war that nobody wanted, but unfortunately needed to happen to sustain long-term peace. So with that being said, guys, thank you for watching this video. Hopefully you found this video somewhat informative and has given you a more clear picture of all the things that are going on. Hopefully my opinion has resonated with you, and if not, hopefully it has challenged your view a little bit, just to give you a different perspective perhaps, and maybe even perhaps change your mind. But if you still believe in what you want to believe, go ahead, you're entitled to your own opinion. If you want, you could comment it down in the comments down below, and we could have a meaningful conversation perhaps. But yeah, guys, that's basically all I have for you in this video. Obviously, very scary times, especially given the developments that the FBI reported that they're aspiring to hit the West Coast. Like, they are literally coming after me, y'all. They're coming after me. I'm a priority target for them. But in all seriousness, if my opinion resonated with you, or if you learned something from this video, don't forget to drop a like. It always helps. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe like always. And as always, stay toxic, but most importantly, in times like this, stay safe, everybody.